Hello and welcome. I am Scott Herbst. I am founder of Six Flex Training and Consulting, and you are listening to or watching The Flex, a show where we have conversations with people who are expressing leadership with the intention of opening up access to you expressing yours. You may notice if you're watching that we have a lot of faces on the screen today. I am really excited to introduce you to the team of Autism Advocacy and Intervention, or AAI. We're going to start with a conversation with Brian Marrier. He is the team founder of AAI and someone I've had the privilege of doing some work with years ago. We recently connected. It just made sense to bring the whole team. He's going to explain why a little later. For now, I am going to shut up, get out of the way, and introduce and welcome the team from AAI. Welcome, guys.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. This is a great opportunity. We've kind of been chit-chatting in the background. What's really nice for us as a team is this particular subject is something that we as an organization have taken very seriously from the beginning, not just using the word as leadership as just a fun word that people like to use in business, but really structurally trying to understand what it is, who we are as leaders, and investing in what it takes to understand it better. Hence our initial kind of meeting where we took your program, which was very beneficial for us as an organization, and we expanded that kind of thought process, thinking, and kind of deconstruction about what leadership is over the past decade, as an agency itself. When you first reached out to me to kind of talk about leadership, which is really dear and central to a lot of everything that I do inside the organization, I felt, what better way to kind of represent the things that I'm saying than actually ask if it was okay with you that, well, let's bring in people from the team that actually can speak freely about their experiences about the things that we're going to be talking about. Far too often it's, in my opinion, right, the leadership of an organization can say things and we believe that, but really proof is in the pudding. So I thought, bring them on in and let's hear, what we all have to say as a collective group. So I got Danielle Cohen, who's the executive clinical director with AAI, has kind of moved up the ranks for over the years and is really someone that's teaching me a lot every day about what it means to be a good listener and a good leader to empower. You got Aaron down on at least the bottom right of my screen, who today is the director of our national telehealth program. And then you've got Rebecca Mack, who's on the bottom left of my screen, who came in a few years ago and is our financial controller. She came in with loads and loads of experience of understanding financial management of hospitals and a variety of different kind of industries. So everyone's coming here from other organizations, whether inside our field of applied behavior analysis or exterior, came on in, and really I think one of the first things we all had to contend with was, what does it mean to be working together inside of an organization that is leveraging, invested in, and curious about applying leadership, empowerment, professional development very, very seriously as a group.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for being here. The thing I wanna I guess where I want to start is that when you and I spoke and started exploring the possibility of coming on here, one of the things you said that was very distinct from conversations I've had with a lot of other founders was that you've got a company that, like, you can be plucked out and the thing will go on, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so I was really interested in that
Sure.
because I know that's something that a lot of founders struggle with is, a lot of founders struggle with, like, how do I ever really take a vacation?
Hmm.
Because even when I travel, like, I gotta see the phone, you know, um, let alone just like walk away and have this thing carry on without me. Um, I I'm embarrassed to say I don't know why I was bringing that up.
No,
Well, here's what I'm interested in exploring with you guys
sure.
is a discussion of the journey that got you to that place, and then I'm particularly interested in Danielle, Aaron, Rebecca's experience in being part of not just part of that, but also growing into the leadership roles that empower and enable that kind of environment. So,
Sure.
so that's more of a statement than a question, but can you start speaking to it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to. And as everyone knows, this is like a dear subject to my heart, so it's not too hard to chit chat. But it's also because it's something that's more or less brought up every week. It's an ongoing conversation. It's very central to who we are. And
Now,
in
when
this,
you say it's an ongoing conversation, what is the it?
what does it mean to be a leader? What does it mean to empower other people? What does it mean to be self-reflective at a very high level? And understanding that who I am today is who I don't want to be tomorrow, and being a part of an organization that will invest value into really working on that particular stimulus for us.
Yes.
And when you said earlier that, I could, I mean, the joke I like to make is that, and people who know me have probably heard me say it 1,000 different times, but the reality of what AAI is today is yes, unlike most organizations, and I say that even outside of applied behavior analysis, but it is a systemic issue inside applied behavior analysis, is I could fall off from a cliff. And I have absolute confidence that AAI continues, that people are still putting food on the plate. We're still growing. We're still having the same output, where people are still asking the same questions about who am I? How can I be better? What does it mean? And that was a goal from day one when my wife and I, Sherry's the owner with me. She's downstairs working on some recruiting right now. But we were both educators, tenured down in Southern California. I was working for autism NPS programs, developing early intervention programs for school districts, and just got absolutely kind of frustrated with really kind of like a lot of the lack of ethics that were embedded, massive caseloads, absolute turner, total burnout, operating, going home at night, being like, I just can't, I know I can do more. Not to be irresponsibly boastful, but I was good at my clinical work. I found myself also really enjoying what it meant to be training people. I really enjoyed kind of next thing I know, I'm at the IEP table or in the classroom, and I'm kind of the glue and the string bringing the parents, the child, the staff, everyone kind of together and trying to put the effort in creating this ecosystem to everyone's on the same page, right? Really a lot of transparency. But as we all know, a systemic problem in a lot of environments is the caseload was massive. It was unrealistic. I could not. It started concerning me personally as a professional. And at this point in time, right now I'm in Vermont, but at this point in time I was in Pasadena area working full time, driving crazy hours, which was fine. And I went home to my wife and I said, I think that there's more I can do. I really can. And I reached out to all the regional centers in California to say, this is who I am as a person. Hung out with them, chit chatted, and a few of them were excited about me kind of going into that area and open up an organization, and ended up opening the organization up in Lake County, California, after meeting with the team there. For people who aren't aware of that, it's right next door to Napa. It's a couple hours from Sacramento, but it's a caldera. It's a place where there's not a lot of ins and outs from it. It's an agricultural community. It's got socioeconomically, it's low on the totem pole, if you will. It is low. So it's a struggle. Other agencies tried to go there and weren't very successful. It's a heavy medicated fund in place.
Hmm.
So taking my kind of history, which we haven't really kind of talked about, I never expected to do this work in a million years. I mean, my foundation is arts. I was a painter and a sculptor and a musician. And then I met a kid on the spectrum and changed my life, and I started over in my late 30s. But I realized that if I'm going to do this, I have to look at it as a holistic approach early on. what does it mean to be a community member inside an environment where there's not a lot of academic infrastructure, and it's kind of a to it at least I appreciated it separate it's kind of barriers from the rest of the world. It was a beautiful environment for me to be inside of because of the agriculture and the community kind of atmosphere of it. But I knew that going in there, we had to really be like, what does it mean to be a member of this community? Meeting with the pediatricians, the doctors, the school districts, the funding sources, sharing who I am, kind of like what we're doing right now before we get to the work. Who are
Hmm.
you? Who am I? What am I about? Not just that I happen to be good at applied behavior analysis and I'm going to inject something into the system. First and foremost, who am I as a person? So that there's a level of respect and trust and kind of a strong base to be standing on first and foremost. And that's a lot of risk because that's time without revenue, right? So me and my wife sacrificed everything to kind of build this, and obviously in the back of our mind, we're like, we're let's get to work. But we were patient. It's the tortoise and the hare story. And I took that very, very serious, and I still do today. And it operated to the point that in Lake County, yeah, we ended up opening a clinic, doing in-home, and building a good, at least from my perspective, a good, strong relationship and employing people. And we were like, how are we growing people? It was connecting with exterior universities to help with professional development for education. But right from the get-go, Scott, it was, what does it mean to have a sustainable organization? Over the years, I'd seen too many ABA agencies fail. You got clinicians going in, starting agencies, and they don't really understand. Next thing you know, it's like, oh, great, revenue is kind of coming in. I got some clients, but now what? I don't even know what HR means. I don't know how to, assess dollars and cents. I don't know how to do billing or how to audit billing and all those things. So it was a belief system for me and my wife that, well, we're going to invest in that right from the get-go. So it's not going to be about, the EBITDA. It's not going to be about the cash in the pocket. It's going to be really about the clinical output, building a sustainable organization that is fully departmentalized, that is empowering the staff through self-evaluation and transparency as a collective group. That operated pretty well. Meanwhile, I was also recognizing that I can't get BCBAs in rural America. Generally speaking, it's metropolitan, where it's, commercial insurances, those types of things. So
Hmm.
back in 2015, I got approval to probe telehealth way back in the day. How can
Oh,
I service these families? So we were building the reputation naturally, and it was just teeny tiny small. It was just me as a BCBA back then.
yeah.
And I got approval to take my caseload that was very direct in the clinic or in home, get your baseline, run the telehealth program, and I actually was in the office but running it, in a side office. And the clinical outcomes were excellent, and the parent feedback was equally appreciative of it as well. So that told me that, okay, good. Now I can actually, if I got that approval, I can actually kind of reach out to the rest of the world and say, hey, look, are you interested in kind of, BCBA, are you interested in supporting this mission statement that AAI has established? Well, at that particular point in time, I mean, reputation for the work that we were doing was operating well. So by the nature of reputation, we expanded up to the border of Oregon. Meanwhile, roughly around that time, the state of Vermont, which is my home state, a distant relative who works for Medicaid heard what I was doing and said, "Hey, would you be interested in kind of doing what you did in the rural parts of California and doing something similar out here in Vermont?" So about 5 years ago, kind of did the same thing, and it was patience and slow, and it was around that time that Danielle came on board. And Danielle came on board, probably thought I was absolutely insane and crazy the way I was talking about things in general, and she can speak to that. And I hope that the time that she's had here proves that those things that I was saying that were important to me are actually real. And I'll let her kind of talk about that stuff. But during that journey was, okay, where are we going? And what are these departments? And who do we need to be bringing on inside here? And how are we, empowering people to either give them the training, invest in the training, to teach them how to do something that even might be out of their comfort zone, to be pushing people, to show people you actually can do it if you've got a supportive infrastructure around you. Today, Danielle's been over the time. I mean, she was a telehealth BCBA and now has moved up the ladder and basically runs all of the clinical operations, challenges me every single day if she agrees or disagrees with the things that I say, and it's a safe place to be able to do that. And as that happened, Aaron came on. And Aaron came on as BCBA and then grew into being the director of the telehealth operations. Today, roughly, I'm just shooting a number out. Let's just say conservatively, 65% of all of our operations are telehealth. And we use it inside school districts, in home. We'll even help inside some of the clinic spaces where we need to. But we also have staff on the ground as well. What was interesting as a BCBA, developing the organization and really focusing on investing into the departmentalization of things of HR, the billing infrastructure, the clinical kind of tiers to make sure things are operating, the dense schedules of oversight are operating, is there's an unfortunate reality. You don't even know what you don't know. How do I, as a BCBA who have never done billing before, know how to interview a biller? I can do references, I can do those types of things, but when you really get into the weeds of things, you're like, it's a very difficult place. So there has been, and that includes leadership. I've always been in leadership positions throughout my life, just by the nature, I guess, of who I am or how my upbringing was. And I thought I knew all kinds of stuff. But when I met you, Scott, and then as our team started growing, I started realizing there was a lot of stuff that I thought I knew, but I was leading a lot through just my kind of emotional heart on things and not structurally. And we can get into more of that as we,
Pause.
yes, sir.
Um, I mean, you've shared a lot,
Yeah.
and there's a couple points I want to underline, and then I'm really interested. I want to come back to
Yeah.
question of what did you think you know about
Mm,
leadership, and
sure.
has that been challenged? But a few real gems I've heard uh
Mm,
from that you've shared along the way is one, that what will have you continue growing and learning is to stay in and maintain this questioning attitude. So I'm guessing,
yeah.
and you can share about it, but like at one point you thought you knew what leadership was, right? And it sounds like now you're more like inside of the question, like, is this leadership? What is leader? Like, well, what if it's not? What then? Um,
Yeah.
and I imagine that's a really powerful way to keep growing, especially in what, at least when you took it on, was a very unknown space, the space of telehealth, right?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. Yeah, we were
um
the only ones at that time, roughly.
yeah, like no one does this. We had to go get approval for this new thing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I imagine that that questioning attitude really helped you navigate into that space and then start to fill it as you found yourself there, right? And with the approval to be there. I think a couple other things, like towards that telehealth, I really another question I can hear that is in the background, at least in this conversation, maybe explicitly for you, in your day to day, is like, how would we do that? And just asking the question. So I can see that you saw a need, and I suppose, and I imagine that if you're like most people, there were all these reasons not to, right? Like,
Sure.
so, well, one reason, at least for that would come up for me, I don't know if it came up for you, but is that, well, like someone would have figured this out, um,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, uh, but then it's like coming back to the question, okay, well, like, how would we? How would we? How would we?
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing I want to underline, before I turn it back to y'all, is that I really appreciate that uh, you bring awareness to what you don't know, by way of like just business operations and how do I do this? And like, where are the gaps in my knowledge in terms of just running a business that I'm gonna have to pay attention to, and getting clear on, oh, like I can't just expect to do services and have everything miraculously work out. I've got to focus things on like recruitment, and then financial management, and uh, collection, and all of that stuff. Um, and planfully taking a look at all of it. And I think that has, like, what you're talking about really scales. And one of my commitments in doing this is that this be a useful conversation to someone who just took on their first management role,
Yeah.
and has their first team. And when I think of like a new BCBA, there's things that go into managing a case, like, um, well, like, I don't know, maybe you've never done the assessments. Maybe you've never had been on a call with an insurance company before and had to advocate for, like, no, I really am saying that this client needs this many hours. And there's going to be a lot of things that you don't know how to do as you move into a new role. And and your life will be easier and probably more successful if you start looking at and asking, well, what are those things? And then how do I fill those gaps when I find them? So
Scott, I think a lot of that is like the curiosity too,
yeah.
right? Not just as a byproduct of your day to day, but it's a starting space of be curious
Yeah.
about yourself and be curious about what's going on around you and be curious about what you thought you knew and be curious about the trajectory of where you're trying to go. Because if you just got those crazy blinders on with all of those stimuli, you're missing opportunities to find the problems. And one of the things I'm most impressed with and privileged to work with, not just these three, but so many other people, is there's a fearlessness of problems through practice in this organization. Like every single problem we've ever come up against, we have solved. And I don't say that irresponsibly at all. And I think others would say that independently when they're talking to other people. And historically, in other environments I worked or under other types of leadership, it was problems were more in the category of fear, and we need to not have these things, right? An avoidance of those or an escape of those particular things. And that, in my opinion, from day one was an error in kind of thinking. Similarly to the boss sitting behind the desk and running an operation based off from fear. Do what I say so you don't get punished, right? We're behavioralists. We know that that doesn't work right. That's not how things kind of operate. So we inject into it like, are we listening? Are we really kind of assessing somebody's particular baseline? Where are they interested in going? What does the agency need? And how are we getting from point A to point B as a collective force with this curiosity of like, bring a wall. I want to see a wall. Give it because that's going to be opportunity for us to stop, invest resources, whether time or finances into it, and be like, this is going to be an opportunity to learn and grow. And we know because of experience, we're going to move on. And our tool belt is just going to be that much more powerful, that much more capable, allows us to disseminate that information to the rest of the team, trickling out, trickling around kind of thing, which empowers professional development. I mean, it's an incredibly rewarding, kind of approach to things. So yes, AAI has, I believe, done a good job trying to solve unique service delivery problems, but that would not be able to be as successful as it is today without that foundation of what does it mean for all of us to be. Let me just say this. I am generally speaking, a confident, micromanaged type person. I want it my way, this way. Let me just get it done because it works for me. That doesn't work here. And that's me having to stop in my tracks and say, this is my intrinsic kind of nature of doing things. Is
Mhm.
that going to be effective here? So that means I had to stop. I had to pay a check to somebody else. I had to listen. I had to say, wait a second, I actually don't know what it means to keep people accountable. I actually don't know. I am not as good of a listener as I really thought I was. And I don't know what it means to be the difference between like an empathetic person versus a sympathetic person inside of an organization at all. And one of the great things that I benefit from every day is that, for example, the three people that are sitting inside here, I mean, I think from time believe in the things that we're doing. We've enhanced this leadership by a collective curiosity about what the hell is this thing and what does it mean inside this organization. And I still find myself, I mean, Rebecca comes to this ship with a different experience. Aaron does too, and so doesn't Danielle. That's not like under this value system and how we approach, it's much more simple of being, that's great, Rebecca, Aaron, and Danielle, that you like to do things that way, but I need you to just do it like this so I can focus. Versus, okay, let me listen. Because when that happens, I'm growing more. I'm becoming a better person. I can't tell you how much better of a listener I am because of Danielle's natural skill set that she brings to the table, right? Or for example, Rebecca, who does finance, she's blunt. She puts it right to the table. A half a cent is the same thing as $1,000. In me, my heart is has a history also just being on my sleeve. So I got to listen to her and learn how to be a better person and advocate for her role while I'm also showing her this is kind of how I'd like us to kind of be thinking about things. So we would not be here today being able to be outside the box thinkers, solving problems every single day, if we were not in an organization that highly, highly leverages this curiosity and takes the word leadership very, very, very seriously. And it's resulted in us, I believe, as a good morale, everyone excited about getting up on Monday, getting to work, and seeing the people around us grow as professionals. And we're continuing to just organically kind of grow, going into new markets, things like that, trying to be smart, try not to overwhelm our team, ask our team, how are you? Are you doing okay? And not just saying that to kind of pacify maybe a stressful situation, but really respond to it as well and allow them at those moments to be a part of that conversation that helps shape who we are and where we're going also. I don't know if that helps a little bit with things, but it's really a very stimulating thing to see operate day in and day out, which also results in a very fascinating response to sometimes those problems. Rebecca, who's inside finance, can hang out with Danielle, and from her exterior perspective on a problem Danielle has, may have an outside of the box thinking thought on a solution, and vice versa. How fascinating is that, right? That we can have departments that are comfortable sharing thoughts, educating each other on what their skill sets are. And in our weekly meetings, we can bring stuff up together and explore unique solutions to stuff. That is an extremely stimulating thing. And from me being over here, whatever you want to call it, seeing that operate is really, I mean, when I put my head down at night, not only do I know that we're providing a good quality service with good acquisition rates, good audits, we're a stable organization, but people are growing as human beings. And one other thing that I think is wonderful, and and that behavior analysis analyst inside me, we know that mastery of skill sets about generalization. That's an important variable that can often be overlooked. And last week, when we were all kind of chit chatting, preparing for this, one of the subjects that came up is what's really amazing is the skills that I learn in the organization, I'm applying in my personal life. I'm listening more. I'm departmentalizing things. How I'm kind of putting things together. That's the we have a term in the organization of professional intimacy, right? And that is evidence of that is the generalization of the things that we are privileged as an organization to really confront and go at it head on fearlessly. And it's extremely rewarding.
Awesome. Um, I would love to hear from your team. And
I say go for it. I'll mute myself and I'll let them talk. You need me. I'll unmute. Danielle knows I love to talk. As much as I hate social kind of things and chit chatty stuff, when I get here, I get fired up because I believe in it so much. Like yourself, Scott. It's really rewarding. So
yeah, and I'm
I'll be
really interested to hear about from you guys about your journey with AAI and your journey as leaders. I didn't ask ahead of time. Who's been here the longest? Yeah.
I've been here for 6.5 years, and Erin was just maybe 6 months behind me. I brought her on as my first team member.
Okay,
Mhm.
great. And both of you started out as BCBAs. So, yes?
Yes, correct.
Yep. So, board certified behavior analysts, in the world of the regular world would probably be considered like mid management, right? In that you're
Yeah.
responsible for a case, you've got to train people to deliver the work. Yeah. Um, so let me ask you, and let's start there. I'm curious what your journey has been like, starting from this role where I think most people who come into a role like that are kind of focused on their little domain, so their caseload, the people who are accountable to them, etc. And then moving into uh, uh, a broader director level role where you're accountable for a lot, really looking at how everything fits together. Um, I'm really interested to hear about that journey and how everything Brian's shared about has or hasn't like worked in like developing you in that journey. So that's a big question. I'll shut up and let you say whatever you want to say now.
Well, I'll start because chronologically, I think that makes sense. But
Yeah.
Brian brought me on as to be the director of telehealth. So, as he said, he had been experimenting and getting really fruitful clinical outcomes from his telehealth service design, but he was still managing it, like he said, like from his little office at the clinic with the session going on next door. And he originally brought me on to kind of take the department and really make it its own entity, if you will, within AAI. And he, as he mentioned, that I thought he was crazy. It was so funny because he offered me the job and I declined it. And what was it, like 4 or 5 months later, Brian? It was just, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I reached back out and I said, hey, is this position still available? And by the grace of God, it was. And
Why'd you
so
decline it?
I was unsure. To be honest, like they were a newer organization. They operated in, like you said, these really small rural communities that um, I was also in California, but in Southern California. So it was what 6, 8 hours kind of away from where I was. I didn't know anything about it. I wasn't able to find a whole lot about it online at the time. And I didn't trust it. So I took a position that was local, that I would go into the homes or into the clinic, and I knew it and I knew about it, and it was just safe. And I wasn't unhappy there. I just couldn't stop thinking about Brian and AAI and everything that he had shared and his passion that, just you just saw it right now when he was just talking about the organization. Um, so thankfully that position was available and I came back on, and it was really, I had a caseload of my own as well. So I started as the director of telehealth, but I was also a BCBA in that I had a caseload, and I had worked as a BCBA in that mid-management position, if you will, for several years across several different organizations. But it was the first time that anybody had really like looked at me and said, I trust you. Like, this is yours. I trust you. I'm here. We're going to collaborate, but I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your ideas. I want to hear your strategies, and how you're going to execute the development of this department. And he really, for the first time ever, someone made me feel like it was mine, um, and that my input was not just on a case, right? Not just my clinical input, because I, you know, I think I was like, this sounds braggadocious, but like a high performer in that area, and that would always get recognized in my years at other organizations. But as far as like a vision for something bigger, that was the first time that anybody really let me be a part of it. And so, but still at the time, I was hiring and training.
Can I interrupt, Danielle? I think that's just a really brilliant point. And what I hear there is that it really empowered you to have some room to create and contribute to the vision.
100%.
Yeah, and I think I really love that, because I think one thing that stops, I'm of the ilk that anyone can provide leadership. Like day one, the frontest of the front lines on their first day can provide leadership for that organization. And my view is that, like, as a leader, or as the, like, you know, president, because like presidents don't always provide leadership, whatever it is, it's not always so much about having the vision, but it's about empowering people to create and fulfill a vision for themselves that, of course, like fits into a bigger picture. You know, I don't think Brian was like, you know, go make a hamburger stand, right? That would have been a little weird. But I just want to underscore that as a leader, it's like, you don't have to have the vision. You can empower others in creating their own vision as a part of something bigger. So that's really powerful. Thanks for letting me interrupt you. I'll let you carry on now.
No, that what I was going to say goes right in line with that. Is there's a difference as BCBAs, or really any mid-level management position, probably this would generalize to. You have, like, we're training and trying to empower RBTs, but it can be so specific to what their day-to-day is, and like how they're implementing this treatment plan that we've created for them, or this behavior intervention plan that we've created for them. And we're assessing them in the way of, like, is there the data that they're taking correct, and are their clients seeing solid clinical outcomes? But that is different than trying to lead the RBT as a person, as a professional. And then as I grew within the company, and I hired Erin as you know, a BCBA, and then she was able to promote, she hired a team within her, that has just trickled. So now leadership looks very different for me than it did, because now I'm trying to empower somebody who needs to empower somebody else, who needs to empower somebody else. And it needs to trickle, and it trickles all the way from Brian. And my day-to-day, I think about Erin and what she's doing. So I'm Erin's direct supervisor, and I think about her and what she's doing throughout the day, probably more than I think about what my own little pile of work over here is, because now yes, I am the clinical director. I have an obligation to make sure that there are, that the treatment integrity of all of our programs is there, that we're meeting clinical outcomes, that everybody's, like, I'm working with the billing department to make sure we're billing ethically and everything's solid there. But I still think my primary job function is to make sure that Erin is killing it out there. And you could exchange Erin with anybody else that is my direct, you know, mentee. And to make sure that she is making her assistant directors, who she oversees, that she's making them feel the same way, because the way that Brian trusted me is the way that I trust her. But I know that that's not given, that's earned. And we're behaviorists, so we shape behavior, right? And it's the same thing. I think the outlook our organization has is it's the same way with leadership. So Erin was given, just like I was by Brian, lots of opportunities to bump up against those bumpers that we set, and fail safely. And she doesn't fail often. Erin's naturally a very high performer. So a better example would be someone who's not naturally a high performer that we really had to work with. And we have examples of that too. But, and she was able, with a dense level of support at the beginning, just like I had from Brian, was able to try to navigate her vision or the vision we had together or the vision that Brian shared with us. Maybe get it right and hit it out of the park, maybe strike out, go back to the drawing board and have that conversation with, it's not hand holding, but it's just a very dense level of support. And just like Brian faded out with me over the last 6 years, that support gets systematically faded out. And Brian would probably say now, just like I would say with Aaron, there's very little, if any, micromanaging that has to be done. It's oversight, it's good checks and balances. But I trust her so much. And that's because the strategy I used to develop that member of my team, and I could see she's using it with member of her team, was shown and implemented with me from Brian. And that's what makes this organization, I think, different than any other ones that I've worked at, where it was like, employees are meant to be seen and not heard, and here's your day-to-day, and you implement, like you said, Scott, you implement my vision as the founder, my vision as the CEO. I give you orders and you execute. There's a time and place for that, but
I love that. What I'm hearing, and I'm curious how it'll fit with your experience, because I might be adding or distorting what you said. But the picture that comes to mind, and I do see this with some owners and leaders that I work with, that they often come to me with this frustration that people aren't doing what they want them to. Like, how do I get them to do what I want them to? And oftentimes where I see the breakdown is that there's an expectation of, you're going to do this, and then when you don't, and I'm going to kind of forget about you, right? And then when I remember you is when you deviate or you do something that's inconvenient for me. And what I'm hearing in your approach is a thoughtfulness, and this comes back to, I mean, there's a real theme emerging here, is like you guys run on questions, right? But the questions you run on are very particular, and the question I can hear there is like, how do I empower? You said, how do I make sure that Aaron's rocking it, right? Or how do I support Aaron in rocking it? And that's very distinct from the like, okay, cool, I'm gonna like set it and forget it until there's a breakdown approach, right? It's like very proactive. And I like the term you use, support dense. Is that what you said?
yeah, a dense level of support.
Yeah, dense level of support. So I just want to underline that for our listeners, that like that question, how do I empower? How do I support? How do I make sure they're winning, is a really powerful place to come from.
I couldn't help but unmute myself. I'll try to be a nice guy and not get too far, but I think I would like to just inject in there that it's an easy aspect to avoid the things that we're talking about because it costs money. It's non-billable time. This stuff, right? Like why would an organization be hyper motivated to kind of assess that space that you're defining, Scott, while recognizing, oh my goodness, that's hundreds of dollars an hour, right? To do that. Well, it's about sustainability and morale and, a foundation that we can build on and weather storms with ease because of, right, the investment today into developing the wherewithal for tomorrow's, which is so fascinating because it stimulates like our skill set to weather further storms. We're much more efficient. Bring it.
Listen, I really want to point to this, because you asked the question and I want to take a stab at answering it. Is like, well, why would you do this when it costs money? And I can't tell you how things are going for you internally, except that I can say that, you're still in business after all these years. So you're clearly making money. And Brian and now your team, because I've met them, you're very easy to get a meeting with. And what that says to me is that there's not a ton of like overwhelm or panic or putting out fires in your life. And the other thing I can say is that when I set a meeting with you, you're reliable for making it. And it's also easy to get a meeting with your team. There are teams where like getting this group together at this high level would have taken, we would have had to schedule it 8 weeks out. And I think we scheduled this like what, a week and a half out.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that the beauty, right? That's the beauty, Aaron, is the team that you oversee, are they doing okay while you're spending time here on a podcast?
Totally fine. Totally fine.
And why is that? Because of the foundation of things that, you know, we've learned from taking your course, Scott, and the work that we put in to keep digging in on that particular space. So it is and I don't think people fully understand. I mean, if we put dollars and cents into what it really means for the energy that we put into, and I say energy in association to dollars and cents and time and all those things, it would be, I bet you'd be a dollar, shocking dollar.
Well, and
Good.
to just speak to that and you know, provide some evidence there, like our BCBA retention rate is stellar. Like what is it, like 98% or something? We've had BCBAs that have been here for longer than I've been here. And when we ask for their feedback, because that's on brand with what we do, like not just what could we do better, but what are we doing currently that is yielding the success, they always say it's the access that they have to leadership, to their director, their direct supervisor. Because at a lot of places, once you get to that high level, you're a BCBA, you are kind of on your own, and like maybe you get a check-in with your supervisor, but usually it's only if there's something, there's constructive feedback to be given, right? So I would, if you, I'm not the accountant, Rebecca could speak to this, but I think if you added up how much it would cost to replace BCBAs who are leaving, and train them and get them credentialed with our organization and the payers and all of the things, we are probably saving money, a lot of money, doing it this way and keeping these BCBAs feeling like they're so supported that they have to, you know, pinch themselves to believe that there's actually an organization that does. And I know I'm sounding very romantic about it, but we always get the BCBAs that come from organization. I mean, they're here for a reason. They're not where they were before for a reason. And once they've stuck around for a bit of time, we're like, what is it? Why are you still here? And that's always the feedback that we get. Leadership is accessible.
I want
Awesome.
to add one thing here if I can. Very
Yeah,
recently,
please.
I dove into just some numbers and shared like high praise truly because it was less than 5% turnover rate over 9 years. And that is substantial. And that is because of the culture here, and how well everybody communicates and collaborates, and the fact that everybody is accessible when you need them to be accessible. And if we've got to move something around, we will. If it's in concrete, we are still adjustable and adaptable. And you cannot say that for a lot of organizations. So,
And well, while you're off mute, non-mic, Rebecca, I would love to have you elaborate on that point, because by my understanding, you're the newest member of the team.
mhm.
And you not
Yeah.
only so you recently came from another organization. How recent was
3
that?
years ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
3 years.
It's been
Okay.
3 years. Mhm.
So
I've
you've been
been
there
here
for
3
3 years.
years.
Yep. Um, and so can you speak to what you've seen that's distinct at AI
Yes.
that might enable like that? I mean, that's like 95% in 8 years is pretty incredible.
It's huge.
Like that's
It is
pretty good
huge.
in 1 year. To do
Mhm.
that for 8 is pretty awesome, right?
9.
9, yeah. So what do you see as distinct?
So for me, coming from corporate, I'm used to structure, of course, and compliance and risk. And everyone here, Aaron hasn't heard it as much, but everybody else has heard all of those terms from me. And I celebrate inside of those areas because it stays within, these very tight lines. And that is structure. Structure is necessary. Um, and I expected to have that. There's some things that needed to be built from scratch, but it has proven to be extremely valuable here inside of this organization. The thing I didn't expect was to have a CEO or founder that was so accessible. I don't experience that a lot in the in my role. Typically, there's a very corporate hierarchy of people who you communicate with, and I'm mostly behind the scenes. So forward facing is nerve-wracking for me.
When you
And
say forward facing, what do you mean?
um, like this. So
Oh,
speaking to administration or somebody
yeah.
who else is in the accounting world or office is different because it is mostly data. And like I said before, there's lots of compliance,
Yeah.
regulatory compliance and risk, and we're talking about those things. And then that information usually leaves financial controller and goes to the CFO, who hands it down in the C-suite of people. And here, because I have lines that I stay between, but the what is so different is how many different things intersect with my lines. And I say my lines. So I had to adapt, my role, my comfort, my structure, and expand on that. And it wasn't the easiest thing because I spoke a very, and still do speak a very technical language when it comes to explaining data and when I'm what the financial outlook and financial health of our organization is. And I'm always looking at what's impacting that. And, I had to learn to speak through from a leadership perspective, through osmosis, if you will, because I did not understand clinical land at all and the nuances. Like I said, I'm over here in the void of things, but where they live and operate has a heartbeat, and that was not anything I was used to.
Yeah.
So data is numbers. It's very black and white, and it's comfortable. And when you figure in the heartbeat or the emotion side of things, and as it relates to our clients and the work that they do, that was a balance. And that's a space I still am, I'm not going to say uncomfortable in, but it's still challenging. But through that, I had to grow and learn how to um, explain things, in a way that they could digest, and vice versa. And then collaborate on how to best serve our clients through maybe a policy did exist, but it left us too exposed. And closing that up where we're not exposed, we didn't want to um, take away from what it was given to our clients either.
Yeah.
So there's a fine balance inside of that space. And we have to navigate that with every single case by case basis, I guess is the easiest way to say it. Something may pop up and we need to have a chat about it. What's the best way to approach this? And none of this would be um, possible truly if we weren't open and we didn't communicate well and respect each other, and our perspectives on things. And I think we each come in with a skill set that is good for AAI in general. I have learned a lot about myself, about this organization, about this industry, just by being in direct communication and under leadership from Brian, but with Danielle specifically. And I just recently, well, the other day, really met Erin face to face via Zoom. But it is just that it does feel like a family, and it is. I have no issues with coming to either one of them and saying, "Hey, there may be an issue here. I want to talk about this." Sometimes I have to say no to things, um, and I'm going to be challenged on the whys. Why is it no? It doesn't fit in budget for this quarter or whatever it may be, or we want to do all of these things, and I want you to be able to do all those things, but I got to take a look here. And I I have never felt as though they didn't respect my position on that. And I can't speak for them, but I hope that they feel that in return.
Well, I can kind of see him nodding. Uh, and well, so here's what I hear, and as always, correct me if I'm off base in any way, not way off
Mhm.
base, just off base at all. But one thing I'm hearing you share, and I think, Brian, this goes back to your point earlier about recognizing that it's not just about service delivery. I got to manage the HR and the finance, et cetera.
Mhm.
I think there's a real recognition and sensitivity to that, like the organization is, I mean, it's probably no accident that organism and organization have the same root, right? That, um, that all the different parts have a function. And oftentimes, I think in organizations, there's almost an implicit assumption that they kind of work against each other. And you'll hear this in how people talk about their organizations. Like you'll hear from the front lines, like, leadership here, right? And then you'll hear from the leadership, like, the front line or or it'll go by department where, it's like, the sales team or the whatever. And what I can hear with you guys is that there is a real understanding and appreciation that all of these things are required to deliver what we deliver. So Rebecca, you're sharing, like, I came in and I'm like a numbers person. uh I'm used to dealing with the numbers and I kind of hand them off.
Yep.
But now it's like actually learning, like, well, what do you provide, and like what is it, has helped you actually like get a different picture of your job. But also, like Danielle, Aaron, it sounds like there's also an appreciation, like finance is kind of important. And and Aaron, we haven't heard from you really yet, but I saw you give a nod there. So I want to bring you into the
Yeah.
conversation. And sounds like a great place to hear your thoughts.
On the bridge between the finance and the clinical side of things,
Yeah,
or just overall?
the bridge, and overall, like what perspective. I'm really interested in the perspective you can bring to the whole conversation we've had so far.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, recently I feel like I've really learned that billing has their own ethics and we have ours as clinicians. And I think I've always struggled with that up until Danielle started explaining some things to me. There was an incident that happened last week where I just had this like aha moment of like, okay, so Rebecca has her own billing ethics that she has to abide by. We have ours. How do we meet in the middle?
mhm.
And we took that situation and we were able to turn it into a really great learning, just a complete learning curve, and come up with a new system for when we do encounter those instances. How do we bridge that gap? And so I
Mm,
think that really is what sets us apart from a lot of organizations that I worked at, because we were so separated from billing. We would only hear from billing when we did something wrong. There was nothing. I never really interacted with the biller. I mean, I walked by her office every once in a while, but that was about it. And just to be able to have those conversations and to problem solve together is awesome, where the two completely separate worlds can come together and make it happen for our clients and still have continuation of care for them, and still be compliant on the billing side is really great. So that's something that definitely sticks out to me, of bridging that gap for sure. But yeah, do you have any more to speak on that, Rebecca?
So there's a lot that happens every day. We all do things behind the scenes, and I call mine my dailies. It's a checklist that I go by, and I check all of these different numbers, and I input data. And when something sticks out, I send an email. What's causing this, or what's happening here, or what are we doing about A, B, C, or D? And even it's really the 5 W's, who, what, when, where, why, and when we're talking about asking all of the questions, we ask all of the questions, and 9 times out of 10, that'll raise some more questions. And it is generally a collaboration. That is how things
Yeah.
go, and that's how we accomplish things. And sometimes we do a sidebar where we're like, okay, let's meet on this, or our next um, departmental meeting, we're going to talk about A, B, C, or D. And we do approach things in that manner. For me, it was I started as a lead accountant, and then my role expanded into financial controller. And that's because, there was creation of policies. So authoring policy, co-authoring policies. The same with SOPs. And thankfully that has shifted to Danielle, and she is magnificent. And I love her for that. So, building SOPs that don't just satisfy compliance, but that bridge the gap, and that they work. So we kind of test them out. We all review them, and we're like, does this look right to you? Are we missing anything here? And it is necessary for every single day, our operations. It is necessary for us to have communication in that type of way. We're always building, we're always thinking. So I go from this over HR and payroll, and I manage that space, and then in billing. When I came into AAI, I wasn't a biller. That was nothing I did. I wasn't interested in it, all the things. And now I'm fully invested in that space. And that is really because Brian and Danielle came in like a wrecking ball. Like, gotta learn. And, so I learned the best of my ability. I'm a work in progress on some things, and I think I always will be. But the understanding about what is needed inside of those spaces is pretty clear to me. And so when we're communicating, and like Erin said, we're bridging the gap, I'm explaining things to Danielle from my side of things, because I look through a very different lens than they do. And Danielle and Brian both are so good about explaining to everybody else why it's necessary, why I have business ethics over here, and we've got ethics, and then you've got clinical ethics, and ethics are ethics, but each of those have a different purpose in mind.
Yeah.
And that is what I think everybody is starting to really learn, that I'm not a scary person, because most accountants are, very rigid. And I have some, what's the word? I'm policy driven. And I use that as my foundation for everything. And I enjoy the black and white. I like to read policy, I like to read compliance, but I'm going to hold everybody to the same standard. And I stand on those firm. That is my foundation, and that's how we protect our company, and that's how we protect our great employees. And so that it will always be my first. I'm not sure what term I want to use for that, but that's my go-to. Is, are we compliant? Are we staying in compliance with our own policies? are we putting ourselves at risk? You know, because you can't really help anybody else if our company's exposed. So we don't have a company, we don't have clients, and we don't have any of these great employees, you know, or coworkers. So that's where I come from, and I try to explain things, you know, like I said before, in a way that's digestible. But we all contribute to the same thing. It's our pot of gold, if you will. And it's growing and growing and growing. And I don't mean literal, you know, gold as in money. It is our work culture here is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So
I
I
want
can't
to
imagine going back into the void ever again.
I want to highlight just really quickly, if that's okay, Scott, that example that Aaron was discussing from last week, because it's a really great example of how that um, the cross collaboration between different departments. And to Rebecca's point about her being very policy driven and having to look at the financial risk, because we are not just running an ABA program, we're running a business. And Erin, her ethical obligation to the client and everything that those standards that she's held to. And like in this particular situation, Rebecca was like, no services. And Erin was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be diabolical for this client. So we had to have a meeting of the minds, if you will, but it was amazing because we realized, wow, this is a big hole. We have no policy as an organization, nothing objective that will tell us what to do if we have a client who has not secured any funding, but we cannot, for safety reasons, stop care. And so, good, we have a big hole, let's fill it. And that's exactly what happened. We had a meeting of the minds and we figured it out. And guess what? That will never happen again. And
Yeah.
we will always have a plan now if this happens.
Yeah.
And that, I want to highlight it because that stuff happens all the time in an organization. But because of the way that it's handled here, and this started with the way Ryan set up the culture here, was like he said at the beginning, he's always told me there's no problem we can't solve. We solved 100% of our problems. So guess what? I'm not afraid of a problem. As soon as that came across my desk and I knew we were going to have a difference of opinion on this based on our own expertise and our own obligations, I was like, let's freaking go, because this is going to be, there's going to be a good outcome after this. Not just for the client, but for the organization. We created a new safety net, and that happens all the time. Not all the time, but it happens.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I want to make a connection myself. Rebecca, as you're sharing, I think if we went back to the very beginning of this conversation, it almost sounded like a little woo-woo, right? To me, where it's like, oh, I said it, I contributed to it, right? But it's like, well, your business runs on questions. Well, like, what does that mean, right? Ultimately you have to do the work and you have to iterate the work and do it again. And there's the day-to-day. What the connection I'm seeing is that the questions you're asking lead to action, and the actions have to be followed through with integrity, and then the systems built, like the policies, the procedures, etc., to support and strengthen the action over time. So I love the connection I'm seeing. Thank you. And Aaron, I do like I want to come back to you.
Yeah.
So everything that everyone has shared,
Yeah.
you want to underline or highlight or contribute, I really want to give you the floor here for a minute.
Okay.
Aaron,
Yeah.
I want to just toss something in just for a sense
Yeah.
of like understanding of what Aaron's got. So I don't mean to cut you off, Aaron. I really apologize,
That's
but
okay.
the weight of responsibility that Aaron has to disseminate the stuff that we have going on is significant. I've got Danielle and Rebecca, right? I mean, obviously we've grown and we've expanded. What does it mean for an organization whose infrastructure grows? And how are you maintaining a value system through that particular growth? Well, I would encourage to challenge Erin on that particular subject because under her, or outside of her, or with her, more appropriately, is assistant directors. And under that is BCBAs. And then there's the trainees. And then there's RBTs. So Danielle, goes in and hangs out here and there, but she's working with Erin kind of day to day, on stuff. Erin, no disrespect, but or coming across that way, but is in the weeds, like really applying this stuff to the next generation, challenging people, pushing people. And I'm going to throw you under the bus a little bit, Erin, just for the fun of it. But like me, we had to confront what am I bringing to the table? What is my
Mhm.
skill set to empower, to keep people accountable? How am I shaping things? Where is my empathy? Where's my sympathy? Right? How am I listening? How am I pushing? How am I stretching? Right? I'm lucky. I gotta hang out currently with Danielle and Rebecca, and I do that to them, right? Rebecca wasn't interested in coming on here. She's scared. Perfect. You're scared. Perfect stimulus. Let's do it so you can get exposed, get some experience. But that's the real thing, right? So I just want to put that on the table just so you know, Scott, like Erin's got a lot, I'm sure, of, things that she could share in terms of, I've had to put this into action
Yeah,
since when she first met
beautiful.
you.
Mhm.
So I'll
Let's
start
start
with,
Yeah.
there and say, okay, great. So we've kind of got this like little bubble that taught, and then it's your job to take it to the team. What can you say about that?
Well, it's not always easy, that's for sure. But I think over time, I mean, when I first started at I was actually in a position prior to that where I wasn't sure if I wanted to move forward in the field. I just felt like I was so burnt out. I wasn't
Mhm.
home with my kids. It took me 2 hours to get home from work because of traffic, in the heart of LA. And it was just, I was on that verge just of like, I don't even know if this is for me. And then I met Brian for my interview. And I remember it was a day that I didn't realize my kids were going to be home and they were screaming in the background. And I was like, okay, totally did not get that job at all. And then I met with Danielle and she gave me the offer. And just from the very beginning, even at the interview, just the full transparency that Brian brought to the table of this is who we are, this is my mission. And I just couldn't feel more aligned with that. And so I gladly accepted on the spot, no problem. I don't have a similar story like Danielle, where I was like, I don't know. It was just a given. It was right away. I just knew that there was something really special and very different about the organization. And so just from the beginning, I felt like even over my cases, all of a sudden I had this new empowerment of like, okay, this is where you're supposed to be. This, no, you are not leaving the field. You are a leader. You can do this stuff. Yes, it's difficult, but I had that empowerment. I accessed a lot of reinforcement for that. And I thank Danielle for that through and through. She has been just the most significant mentor and brought me back and brought my love back into the field for sure. And then as I stepped into a director role, I didn't ever really want to be a director. I got offered a director position at a previous organization 2 weeks after I passed my BCBA exam. And I was like, no, there's no way. I have way more I got to learn. That's kind of reckless. But when I went into that position, she did a great job modeling everything, using a lot of BST training with me. And again, I just kept feeling more empowered. Like I can do this. I was thrown into some really difficult situations, but I was never alone in those situations. And I think that is what I have really carried over, especially with my team is, yes, you're going to face some really tough situations, things that I may have never faced in my career being in the field. But you're not alone in it. And there's, again, no problem we can't solve. We'll get through it. Even if we make a mistake, we fall on our face, as long as we've learned from the situation, we can press forward. We can absolutely press forward and get through it. And so I really carry that with them is just having that level of support. Again, like being at a previous organizations, I've actually been at quite a few that have been startups, and over time you just get your voice kind of gets drowned out further and further to the point where you just don't, whatever you say doesn't really get to the top. And with our team here, your voice gets to the top that same day, like within a few minutes. And it's like, okay, I can hear you. I hear you. Might not always be a yes, but let's talk about how we can make this work in the long run, or here's why it can't be a yes, but and let's see what we can do in the future about this. So there's a lot that encompasses that, but I really go back to Brian's transparency and his humble leadership. He is so self-reflective, and I admire that, because again, previous organizations, you get this big title of being a founder or a director, and it gets to your head, and you then kind of, the people don't matter that are below you. And with Brian, he just wants to know all that's going on in the field, and, really cares, truly cares, not just about the, what we're doing, but really about the humans, a very human first mentality. And so again, that's just a trickle down effect from Brian. I carry that over into my teams. I've got a lot of moms on my teams, and I always tell them, like, you're mom first, you're a mom first when it comes to this. And we all have each other's backs, and support one another, empower one another. And I'm really excited to say too, I think about 50% of our BCBAs are homegrown BCBAs. So they started as RBTs, have gone into lead RBTs, to trainees, mid-level supervisors, and now our BCBAs. I think we've had about 6 or 7 pass within the last year. So it really just has a substantial trickle-down effect that we have here.
And it's not all rosy. Like Erin is comfortable coming to me and saying, when I'm like, oh gosh, I gotta tell her something. Rebecca told me no on something, or Brian told me no, and I gotta go tell Erin. She's gonna have to go to all the front lines and disseminate that information. And there are there are times where she says, hey, I don't agree with this decision. I understand why, and I got your back. And so she will take to the team. It's not like, I know, Danielle told me I have to tell you. We're a united front. She models that for them, so that when she has to take information to them and she's anticipating blowback, 9 times out of 10, I'm like holding my breath, like, how were they? And she's like, they're cool. They got it. They don't love it, but they got it, because they have her back.
Yep.
I'd like to add one thing to that. When we're talking about transparency, that is huge for me personally. And then to see that inside of this organization, because in my previous world, it wasn't that way. So what we have here, it's like a fever dream. It's like, is this really real? And it is. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I can't imagine not having Brian, Danielle, or Erin, or anybody else not be a part of a conversation that contributes to the success of our organization. And this is something that we also speak to, is collective success. And it's like, you succeed, we succeed. It really is that. And it may seem very cliche, but it's 100% accurate for us here.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Guys, we are so close to out of time, the time we set aside to have this conversation. So I am just going to wrap it up here. And I want to put a capstone on it and then give you a chance to say, no, you totally missed the point. Or that's it. But I think I got it. And I think the broad takeaway, maybe more than a sentence, maybe a paragraph, but the broad takeaway here from me is, one, there's a very clear mission and vision, and like a what for in the work that you do, that is bigger than any one individual identity or ego, or and I've heard that a few times, that it's like, it's not just me about like Rebecca, it would be easy as a finance person to make your game the game of, are we making money, right?
Yeah.
And Danielle or Erin, like, are we delivering great service? Like, are people, And there's a real appreciation for that bigger thing and what it takes to have that bigger thing work. And then maybe that's it. Maybe what it is there's the bigger thing, but also the real appreciation for what it takes to make that work, that I think enables a lot of what you're talking about. Because it's not unusual for someone in your position, Aaron, to, when a decision comes down that you don't like, to do exactly what Danielle was pointing to, which is to be like, well, guys, sorry, I got a report, but they won't let us, right?
Mhm.
Really fully own the decisions as an organization decision
Right. Right.
versus like their decision or my decision or etc. So I think the takeaway for me is like, get your ego out of the way, but give yourself the tools and the practices like a solid mission vision so that you can do that, and then build in the structures and the conversations or the channels so that that can actually really grow and spread.
Mhm.
It allows, I mean, it allows an incredible stimulus of opportunity to expose people to things that they had never been exposed to before, and engage in this, learning new space with an infrastructure that is designed to put you there and give you the tools and the resources to, be successful in those things. Being able to really be a listener is, and I can't emphasize, people love to say, yeah, that's important. It is way more complex of a conversation than just having your ears open. It's truly listening and then putting people in another position of, what do you think? Right? You're bringing this to the table. Let's talk about it. And what do you think? Oh, that's what you're trying to accomplish. Well, what does the outcome look like? And how do I, for example, Danielle, how do I keep you accountable? You tell me how I'm supposed to keep you accountable, and I will. Right? And I mean, that's an incredibly interesting kind of spot because she owns it. It's hers. She presented it. She designed the kind of infrastructure around it. And this is how you can measure me. And if you're in along the way, if she can't do it, she's going to come to me and be like, I'm not meeting it. This is why. This is what my kind of, response to it is to get from point A to point B, or this is what I've learned. I've said, jokingly but seriously, there's two things that I can say that I'm so proud of. I can fall off a cliff and die, and this organization will keep clicking, independent. The second thing well, there's three things, and the second one that I can say is, we love the industry that we're in. I mean, the social impact is so rewarding. But I think, Scott, when I met you, I believe this organization, we could do anything. We could sell vacuum cleaners and we would be incredible at doing it because of how we understand what it means to run kind of an organization that has an agenda, right? I mean, it is extremely stimulating. And what does that do for me? That allows me to be project oriented, be thinking about things, right? Take my ideas and bring them to the team. Be like, what do you think? What do you think about this? Right? I mean, that is, what a privileged position that I get to be in today. And I do not take that lightheartedly. It's been a work. It's the collective group of people that believe in this. And to know that we have a good number of BCBAs like Aaron that came to the organization, were like, I was done. I'm sick of this field. It's exhausting. And knowing that they got to come here and be like, wow, I actually get to do the work that I love to do. I mean, we've got BCBAs that are eager, like, I want to do the direct service work because you can here too, right? Getting back down to the nitty gritty, the things that brought us kind of into this field of appreciation and excitement. So I love this opportunity. This is central to everything that I do day in and day out. It filters through this conversation. This was really a great privilege to allow us to kind of come onto your podcast and kind of share it with your audience out there. You were part of it from the beginning, Scott, so kudos to you. But I will tell you that we have never, ever let up on this particular subject and press harder. Today, we're a group of people that we can consult with people and talk about what it is and share kind of what we learned. And isn't that our responsibility as behavioralists? Disseminate, 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 get it out there. We have a quality organization that is capable of doing great things. We can grow, we can stay the same, we can bring on, we can do this and that because we got a good stand, a place that we're standing on, fully departmentalized, that communicates and really puts the work in to understand each other's responsibilities and how those are all deeply, linked in for success. So I couldn't be more proud, humbled, and absolutely recognize the privilege that I have by working with Rebecca, Aaron, Danielle, and the rest of the team. I love nothing more than getting into the car or into the plane, flying out, hanging out with the team, going out to dinner and hearing similar things, right? Like, oh my goodness, nice to see this is a supportive place. I have a voice. Yeah. And we're going to pressure you. People aren't used to having a voice. Imagine being pressured in a safe place to get outside your comfort zone to communicate. Holy smoke, someone listens and it actually has impact. Yeah. But that takes work, investment, energy, curiosity, self-reflection, and an unwavering kind of commitment to, these value systems. Like Aaron said, most lose them. Everyone starts things with this romantic notion about things, but to hold it costs a lot. But look at what it's done as a group of people. We love getting up on Monday and hanging out and getting through the work week. It's great. So this has really been wonderful, Scott. It's very nice of you to remember us and to reach out and chit chat and allow us to come on and kind of shake things up a little bit by bringing the team to kind of.
It's been
Yeah.
wonderful for me as well. This is the first time we've had like a panel like this.
Yeah.
So thanks for guys making it possible and showing up and being willing. And really what I've loved about this, aside from just I love conversations like this, is the opportunity to really hear and see how it fits together. And so have really, really appreciated that perspective. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Appreciate it.
Fun.
And to everyone listening, this concludes this episode of The Flex. Thank you for sticking with us through our longest episode to date. And we will, don't forget to hit all the buttons, the likes, the reviews, etc. And we will see you back here next time at our next episode. Thank you.